Hey, here's a life tip for you. If you want to get a good sense of who somebody is, where they're at, and how they think about the world, just walk up to them randomly, even if you've never met, in any social context, like on the street, at the grocery store, at the opera. Just interrupt whatever's going on and be like, hey, excuse me, pardon me, ma'am? In 1994, who performed the chart-topping hit I Swear? And they're going to tell you one of two things. Some people, without raising any questions or concerns about the social context in which you broached the question, are just going to look you right in the eye and be like, that right there was all for one, and everybody knows that. But you can just turn to the very next person and be like, same question to you, brother. What's the answer? And with just as much conviction and confidence, they're going to look at you and be like, I swear? Oh, yeah, that was by John Michael Montgomery. I remember that summer. And then if you really want to mess with them, be like, okay, same question. Who did I Can Love You Like That? And they're going to give you the same answers. And the freaky part is everybody's right, because back then the world was so split into little segments that you could have the exact same song on different genre charts at the exact same time. And apparently there was no cross-pollination and no concern with that whatsoever. But my point is that I Swear song. Do you remember it? It's like I swear, but sun and the moon and the stars or something like that. I don't know. I'm getting it exactly right. And the whole idea is it's like this person professing their love. I'm going to be there with you forever. It's a nice the 80s, 90s style song. And the profession is that I am swearing by all of these incredibly valuable things. And I remember listening to that when I was a kid and thinking, like, man, that's beautiful. That's the kind of thing that I would like to communicate to somebody that I'm in love with, to really get the point across that I'm going to be there for them forever. And then I thought about it a little bit further, and I was like, that's incredibly hollow. What does any of that mean? I don't own the sun. I don't own the moon. I don't own the stars. Those are completely vacuous words, and those vows mean absolutely nothing. And further, I broke up with every girlfriend I ever had in my entire life, all of them except for Camilla. She and I were doing great. We're super in love and happy, and that's going awesome. But I broke up with all the other ones, and I said all kinds of things like, I really care about you, baby. And I probably even channeled some of these completely stupid top 40 lyrics at them in an attempt to get them to like me more, because I was an idiot. Not like now, obviously, when I'm smart and good at things and sophisticated socially. I mean, back then, when I was super dumb. But in addition to the fact that I do think of that as an all-for-one song, the telling detail here for me is that at any point in my life, I listened to those types of lyrics and was like, oh yeah, that's how you know somebody means it, because they're like, I swear. But then along the way, as I'm sure has been the case for most or all of you, you realize that people say I swear a lot about a lot of things, and it doesn't really matter very much. There's always an out clause. There's always some kind of wiggle room. There's always the option to just the outright lie or gaslighting and say, I don't think I ever swore by the sun and the moon and the stars. And likewise, in Matthew chapter 23, we find that this phenomenon of bloated swear language that doesn't really mean much of anything. This is not a new phenomenon. It was an issue that had been an issue for apparently some decent amount of time by the time Jesus shows up, because there were social expectations, there were rules, there were laws. I mean, heck, even the Old Testament speaks to this thing. And Jesus brings up sloppy oath-keeping and sloppy invocations of the phrase, I swear, and weaselly little I swear addendums that are just right there in the footnotes and the fine print that people were apparently attaching to their grand ovations of oath-taking and vow-taking. And Jesus is pointing to all of these things every time they come up as evidence, the problems with people's hearts and problems with the way we think about truth and interact with each other. And that topic is back in view in woe number 3 of 7 woes that we're looking at in Matthew chapter 23 that Jesus fires off at the religious leadership in front of everybody. This one's going to be fun. It's going to take a while to break down, so we'll see how far we get today. Matthew 23:16. Woe to you, blind guides. Now that's interesting right off the bat, because this is the only one of the 7 woes where Jesus does not address the woe to the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. Well, I think he says it the other way around, teachers of the law and the Pharisees. I think maybe we glossed over this a little bit on the front end of talking about the 7 woes, but I mean, you're smart, you've seen movies, you've read books. You can tell that what we're getting here is something that reads like an oracle, like somebody who stands up and speaks dangerous truth in bold, dangerous situations. Is kind of like Buttercup's nightmare that she kept having, where that lady would stand up and everybody else like, oh, this is so beautiful, and they're golf clapping and everything. And Christopher Sarandon's up there on the balcony like, Princess Buttercup. And then Robin Wright, she comes out and she's all lovely and everything, but she's conflicted. But the theme of the story is true love. And so there's the old lady who comes out and she's got the warts and the screwed up face. And she yells, boo, boo, boo. And all of the booing, it's story structure wise, archetype wise, that's the truth telling oracle. That's the bold, dangerous statement of actual truth in front of everybody that maybe everybody actually knows, but nobody really has the courage to say. And she comes out and says it. So that's the kind of thing that we're getting here. And in any type of genre where this character shows up, be it Shakespeare, be it classical Greek tragedies, be it in modern filmmaking, be it in the Bible, there's always this really neat, tidy structure to how you say it. And if there's ever any kind of deviation from that, well, that would be worth interpreting more deeply, because apparently that deviation from the formula is intentional and is making a point. So boo to you, woe to you. That sounds just like all the other stuff. The blind guide's departure from the structure here then means that somehow this failure to keep oaths that we're going to see in the upcoming verses makes them blind guides. This is how you people who are hearing these statements of woes should be able to figure out that these are not truth tellers, and that they deserve this ironic title of blind guide. I mean, who do you really want guiding you around through dangerous things? I mean, maybe if it's like Daredevil or something, who has heightened senses after being exposed to toxic chemicals, that's one thing. But there's no such indication here. The Pharisees did not apparently have heightened senses of smell and hearing, and they were not able to do the things Daredevil can do. So they really are just blind guides because they don't do the integrity thing. They say lots of words, they make lots of boasts, but these boasts and these words don't mean anything. You say, picking it up in verse 16 again, if anyone swears by the temple, it means nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, then he's bound by his oath. There's so many things, especially in the narrative parts of the New Testament, where it's very tempting to just buzz by it because it seems culturally foreign to us. But I don't think it's that hard in this situation to piece back together what was going on here. Even if we don't have original source material on exactly how the structures of all of the oaths worked, and we actually do have some original source material on it, still, it's pretty easy to see that this is an accusation of weaseling. The religious leadership was apparently telling people that a certain kind of oath wasn't entirely binding, but another kind of oath means you totally mean it. If you're like, didn't we talk about this before? The answer is yes, we did talk about that back in Matthew chapter 5, and we'll go and look at that in our next conversation. But just even from the immediate context, it would appear that what's going on here is a charge of gerrymandering the rules of oaths to accommodate things that Pharisees had said, so that they come off looking good and so that everybody else comes off looking bad. Remember all of that business from the beginning of chapter 23 about how the Pharisees tie up heavy loads and put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them? Remember that additional business that came right after that about how much the Pharisees like the place of honor and they like the titles? Well, one of the places where that was apparently manifesting was in how Pharisees taught on and themselves practiced certain types of oath proclaiming and oath keeping. And my guess would be that at some point the Pharisees made some sort of religious political proclamation about, hey, like this is how the things are. And then that tweet did not age well. And people came back and they were like, you said that this is how the things had to be. And you swore an oath that this is what we'd all have to do in that particular situation. You swore an oath by the temple, remember? But then it didn't really benefit you to keep that oath anymore. And then you were like, well, you don't actually, you don't swear by the temple. It's by like the gold in the temple, which we did not technically say. And therefore what we were doing, like it was a test. We were making a point about like oaths and how bad and corrupt our enemies are. And also think about those people over there. Like, they don't keep oaths very well either, do they? You should focus on that. I mean, it just looks like all of the political bull crappery that we get today, where you use stupid language that'll only work on the dumbest people in society or your own base who so badly wants to believe that you're right no matter what anyway. It smacks of the kind of stuff where you use weasel words and weasel language to make sure that you are never even kind of a little bit wrong about anything in front of anyone, because your enemies will pounce, and they will pounce because, well, if they did it, you would pounce on them, seizing any opportunity to get ahead and cement your own power and authority. And what goes through the ringer in that kind of environment, as you are experiencing in your culture right now, is any notion of actual truth, any sense of how things actually are, any sense of, can you believe the things that that person says? Is that an accurate account of the thing? And so while we're just at the front end of getting into this thought that Jesus is introducing, to me, it is already reading like an indictment of the entire dialogue, the entire thing that the religious leadership had built, probably in a quiet partnership with their political enemies. And in doing so, they create this Overton window that always preserves their power, where only certain things can be discussed, debated, talked about, and where truth will always be framed in a certain slippery way, and that benefits people in power. So they're going to set up rules that are real slick and difficult to interpret and difficult to keep track of, and those things can always be amended and changed and maneuvered around by the masses' betters to make the things the way they need things to be. It looks pretty clearly like the accusation here is that those are the kind of untruthy shenanigans that these leaders, these blind guides, were pulling. And I think what we're going to find as we go along is that, like, hey, once you start doing that and playing those kind of games, you really forfeit your ability to be a guide to anyone. Yet these folks were very proud at their ability to be a guide. And well, we're just at the tip of the iceberg of Jesus' condemnation of this behavior on their part. And we will break that down more completely in the coming conversations. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.